we're part of a consortium of 5 hospices based in Cumbria, so quite a long way from here. I left home this morning at 4:40 on a taxi, so we are quite a way away from London, but what we are is a unique 5 group of hospices who decided that we wanted to work together. And how it came about, how it came about is our CEOs were also meeting to talk collaboratively about care and the impact it was having in the areas and where we were working, and they thought it'd be a really good idea that the heads of fundraising all came together as well. So we started as an alliance, and Julie's also at the back of the room from our Hospice at Home West Cumbria as well, who's part of the alliance. So 5 hospices, a real vast area. How would we meet? How would we actually even start as an alliance? So we decided that tea-based services, and anyone who ever goes up to the Lake District may know it, beautiful farm shop, really nice coffee and cakes. So we thought that's where we'll meet. But it was still geographically, for all of us, a good hour away. So we started as an alliance and we had our base and decided where we were going to meet. But what we needed to decide is what was going to be our aims and objectives. What did we want to achieve? Was it just a really nice chance for us all to have a coffee and a cake and discuss how hard it is in fundraising? Or did we want to actually get something out of being together and working collaboratively together? So we did decide that we wanted to do a campaign, and as all fundraising, heads of fundraising departments manage, we're quite competitive, and we need our own money because we've all got our own budgets and income to bring in. So what could we do that actually wouldn't impact on each other's bottom lines? And legacies was a real clear picture that we thought we can do something here together, we can help each other, we can work together, and more importantly, we can try and influence people to leave a legacy to a hospice. So we decided that was what we wanted, so that was great, so that was kind of one session. But then we also really had to be committed. We weren't going to fly solo, we were all going to work together. And as you all know, I don't know about your diaries, mine's constantly booked up with meetings, appointments, budget setting, all sorts. But we had to decide that we all had to put the same amount of effort in. There was 5 of us, we were all doing the same job, but we had to agree that if we were doing it, we were all doing it 100%. So we set off, and this is quite a large slide, and I'm not going to by any means read through it, but we decided we needed a bit of a fundraising charter. We were being quite professional about this. We needed to set some objectives. What did we want to do? We actually had one hospice, which is Julie's hospice, which is actually only hospice at home. So they didn't have an inpatient unit. We had Chris, who had a children's hospice. So we were quite mixed, but we were all delivering outstanding hospice care in our community. So we wanted to protect our supporters. We wanted to protect our existing supporters we were working with. We wanted to ensure we're compliant. GDPR, fundraising regulator was all coming around, and this all started back in 2016, so we've been nearly together now for 3 years. So we agreed on our standards, we agreed on our charter, we had this lovely PDF that was then presented to the chief execs, and they were like, yeah, wow, they're actually going to do something, which was quite remarkable. So we had our charter, and then we had to decide what was our campaign, what were we going to do. So as we said, we wanted to do something wonderful, okay? We wanted to really put ourselves on the map of Cumbria. And this is really hard because half of my hospice is in North Lancashire as well. So, it was all about Cumbria. So our campaign was doing something wonderful today. So, we could secure our nurses for the future. So we had to look at how could we market it? What was our rationale behind it? How much money could we spend? Where would we advertise? We all had our own little sort of catchment areas. There was lots of different newspaper groups that some of us advertised in, some of us didn't. If you listen to the radio stations, they were all variable depending on which part of Cumbria you were in. How much money could we put? Who had the most social media activity? Was it worth doing social media? So we looked at all our different advertising platforms and decided the best way to go forward would be to do a complete mixture. And that's where the teamwork started. So one person went out and got quotes for press releases, one person went out and got radio quotes, social media, Facebook boosting, door drops. 250,000 people live in the population that we serve as hospices in Cumbria, and it's really spread out. For those that have been to the Lake District, it's really vastly spread out. So we needed to make sure whatever we did, it all worked in conjunction together. So how would we guarantee we'd have one integrated campaign across Cumbria? We were really clear and open with each other. We found these meetings were really useful to just talk to each other and decide where we wanted to go forwards. But we also needed to be clear that we weren't going to come away from the message. So My Hospice couldn't decide to just change the advertising slightly to be more focused on me and North Lancashire, and Chris couldn't emphasise it to be more about his neck of the woods. So we set some standards. We had combined press releases that we all signed off. We had adverts that we all signed off, radio interviews. Everything was joined up. We all wanted the same thing, and that was to really promote legacy giving in Cumbria. And as you can see from the charts that we have here, when you look at the Facebook, so this was back in 2016, together with 5 hospices, we had a collective kind of reach of 25,000 likes on our page. So that's a huge amount of people. And of course, then we could boost those posts, social media posts, Twitter as well. When you start to look at the different segments, the 2 larger ones on Facebook and Twitter were obviously St John's Hospice and Chris's at Eden Valley. And the other hospices were slightly smaller, but as you'll see when Chris talks through, we really started to all have the same impact. So collectively, we were reaching so many more people than we could ever reach on our own. And I think that's been the main thing that we've taken away from this, is that if we all work together, we can do so much more. You know, we all sit and look at the national charities, and apologies, I know there's a few in the room, but you know, we are quite little in comparison. We don't have the budgets, we don't have the money all the time, you know, but actually if we work together, we can achieve what they achieve. So when you look at all the social media elements there, even the e-marketing, you know, nearly 22,000 people that were warm to us, that had email addresses that we could market about giving a legacy. So we door dropped 250,000 households. We went on the Bay Radio, CFM. We went in all the local newspapers, and collectively we had this message of doing something wonderful together. So we had all our ideas, and that was really good, and we'd had lots of coffee by now, not cakes, but lots of coffee and discussions, and what should we do? And now the hard part came, is how much money could we actually afford to invest? You know, could we do one of those segments of advertising, or did we need to do all of them to have the biggest impact? Could we afford not to invest? You know, we were all going back to our CEOs and boards saying, we need some money, but with no proof with what we're going to do. Some of our CEOs needed a little bit more convincing than others, but I'm really pleased to say, you know, we're in 2019 and they're still supporting us, and they're still happy with what we're doing as a group. And legacy fundraising, its marketing is it's a long-term project, and I think we've heard that throughout the whole day, even from when we started with Meg. You know, our trustees and our board really look at how much money we're spending all the time, but don't actually look at sometimes legacy giving is going to come potentially when we're no longer working in the hospice movement. It might come in 5 years' time, 10 years' time. So are we prepared to invest in it now, knowing that it's not going to hit our bottom line, certainly while we're in our roles? So this was our motto, and this is where it began. So do something wonderful today so our nurses can care tomorrow. And we set up a landing page on a website, all with this message. This was our message, and this is what we wanted collectively as 5 hospices working together in Cumbria. And Chris will now take you through the rest of it.
So the investment that we had agreed originally was £5,000, but what also became clear during the campaign is some of the deals that some of the hospices had with local media groups, and were getting a lot cheaper for their advertising than other organisations were paying. So it became quite eye-opening that we could actually save some money with the campaign. We set ourselves certain criteria in terms of how we were going to measure the campaign's success, and we picked 3, which was in relation to social media, direct contact with the hospice, and then our website traffic as well. And I apologise for those of you at the back. You are obviously going to get copies of the slides, but there were some interesting sort of statistics that came through as a result of the campaign. We'd all pre-planned when we were going to do our post. That had all been agreed, but the organic reach, for example, in some of the organisations for Eden Valley Hospice was over nearly 12,000, and the St Mary's Hospice, for example, had an organic reach of 3,745. In terms of the legacy page traffic, which was also where we were trying to drive activity, Hospice at Home in West Cumbria, in the first 3 months of the year had no visitors to that particular page on their website. But come April, as we were getting close to the launch, they had 63 visits on their legacy page and then 41. So we were really able to drive quite a lot of traffic towards our website, and that was quite innovative in itself. And then what did we learn? I think Catherine's alluded to this already, but it is a big challenge when there are 5 of you all trying to combine and get together. That was a challenge a lot of the time, but we did manage to get to T-Bay. We did manage to have a cup of tea and a cake now and again. And that geographical area is huge. It took a lot of commitment, and we had to be really dedicated towards it. But we have learned that there is a real sense of strength in numbers, and we've learned that you can definitely achieve more if you work collaboratively than if you work on your own. So what did we do next? We went again with a second campaign, and we followed the same marketing idea. So we had some traction with the Do Something Wonderful Today campaign, but we also wanted to create a video or a film that we could show as well. Luckily, one of our hospice patrons is Fiona Armstrong, the newsreader, and she agreed to do a film on our behalf, which hopefully, if the technology works, might come next.
You know, it's true what they say. The older you get, the more you realise that the greatest gift of life is helping those in need. And you can do just that by helping your local hospice and hospice at home teams do something amazing. After looking after your family and friends, please consider leaving a gift in your will. This support will allow us to provide essential care, comfort and assistance for patients, their families and carers. Your generous gift today, however large or small, will really help tomorrow in your local community. Find out the difference you can make at dosomethingwonderfultoday.org.uk and allow Cumbria hospices and hospice at home teams to continue to care in the future. Support Hospice at Home Carlisle and North Lakeland, St Mary's Hospice, St John's Hospice, Hospice at Home, West Cumbria, Eden Valley Hospice, and Jigsaw Cumbria Children's Hospice. Remember, do something wonderful today so our nurses can care tomorrow.
So I think the biggest challenge we had with that particular piece was trying to condense it into as short a time as we possibly could, but we got there in the end. We also wanted to engage our retail network, and we have almost 30 shops across the organisations. So we produced, I've got my biodegradable bags that went through all of our shops, and we got the message out through that. It caused a little bit of controversy among some of our retail volunteers who thought it was a waste of money, but actually it got the conversation going, and that was a big part of it, actually engaging a lot of our volunteers in what we were doing. So despite some of the negative feedback that we got, we also got people talking about exactly what we wanted them to talk about. And we are still meeting now, and we're still sharing ideas to support each other. I think this was a slide that was shared earlier by Meg, and it just highlights this area around hospices and are we really investing sufficient money in our legacy marketing? I'm not convinced. I've just sat through Nigel's session across there, and there's a real concern in terms of the top 100 legacy fundraising charities are investing £25 million per annum in their legacy marketing. How do we compete with those organisations? I was sat with my dad last night watching telly, and the Cancer Research UK advert came on, and he loved it. He was in. I was amazed, but that's Dad. And if we're not at that table right now, if we're going to work independently, we're never going to be at that table. So we've got to start thinking differently. And I think that's the essence of my presentation and our presentation today. Is there something that we can do as a collaboration? How can we do it independently? I don't think it's possible. I think some of the larger hospices clearly have quite significant budgets to spend, but they're still nowhere near what we need to be spending as a conglomerate. So I think that's a question to the audience, essentially, is can we all get together? Is that possible? Do we all share that sort of determination to do more? And if so, I think that's the dialogue to have now. How do we actually get that into the water? How can we make maybe 2020 the year when we do something on a national campaign basis? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Catherine. That was brilliant.